Document. Part 6 of the story. The chamber hummed with newfound energy, its glow casting long shadows across the walls. The team stood in awe, their breath visible in the still cold air, as they gazed at the ancient machinery coming back to life. Panels that had been dark for centuries now flickered with light, and faint vibrations traveled through the floor beneath their boots. It was like waking a sleeping giant, and none of them could shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of something far greater than themselves. Emma approached the central console cautiously, her gloved hands hovering over its glowing surface. She studied the shifting runes, trying to decipher their meaning. Though they were unlike any language she'd ever seen, there was a rhythm to them, a pattern that felt almost musical. "It's beautiful," she whispered, half to herself, "like poetry written in light." Ryan stepped closer, his eyes scanning the room. "Beautiful or not, we need to figure out what this thing does before we accidentally blow ourselves up." His tone was light, but there was an underlying tension in his voice. They were deep underground, surrounded by alien technology they barely understood, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. Jake knelt beside one of the smaller machines, inspecting it carefully. "This stuff looks advanced way beyond anything we've got back home, but some of these parts are burned out. Whatever happened here wasn't pretty." Lauren nodded, pointing to scorch marks along the walls. "Looks like an explosion, or maybe multiple explosions. Could have been sabotage, or maybe their systems overloaded." Emma frowned, turning her attention back to the console. "If we can stabilize this, even temporarily, it might give us clues about what went wrong, and more importantly, it could help the aliens survive." With that goal in mind, the team worked together to piece together how the system functioned. Emma focused on the console, using trial and error to activate different sections. Each time she pressed a glowing rune or adjusted a lever, the chamber responded, sometimes with a soft hum, other times with a loud whirry noise that made everyone flinch. Ryan kept watch, ensuring no new dangers emerged, while Jake tinkered with damaged components, improvising repairs with tools from their kits. Lauren monitored the temperature and air quality, making sure the environment remained safe for them to continue working. Hours passed, and progress was slow but steady. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the console emitted a steady pulse of light, accompanied by a low, resonant tone that filled the chamber. The surrounding machines began to power up, their dormant lights turning bright and steady. The air grew warmer, and the metallic scent faded, replaced by a clean, crisp smell that reminded Emma of freshly fallen snow. "We did it," Emma said, her voice trembling with excitement. "We brought it back online." Ryan let out a long breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Good work, everyone. Now, let's see if we can find out what happened here and why." As they explored further, they discovered records stored within the system data, encoded in the same glowing runes that adorned the walls. While none of them could read the symbols directly, the console seemed capable of translating them into simple images and sounds. Through this crude interface, fragments of the aliens' history began to emerge. The recordings showed a thriving civilization beneath the ESA network of interconnected cities powered by geothermal energy. The aliens, who called themselves the Luminous, had lived harmoniously with their environment, drawing sustainable energy from the planet's core. But then came the disaster. A massive eruption deep below the surface had destabilized their power grid, causing chain reactions that destroyed much of their infrastructure. Forced to flee, the survivors sought refuge above ground, only to find themselves ill-equipped for the harsh conditions. "They didn't just lose their homes," Emma said softly, her eyes fixed on the images displayed by the console. "They lost everything: their way of life, their resources, their connection to each other. No wonder they're struggling." Jake shook his head, his expression grim. "And now they're stuck up there, freezing to death because they can't access their old tech," Lonren added. "It's like they're ghosts haunting the ruins of their own world." Ryan clenched his fists, frustration building inside him. We can't fix all of this not right away, but we can buy them time. If we reroute enough power to the surface, it might give them a fighting chance. Emma hesitated, glancing at the glowing console. It won't be easy. This system is barely stable as it is. Pushing too hard could cause another collapse. No, Ryan replied, his voice firm. But we don't have a choice. We owe them that much. Working quickly, the team modified the system to channel energy toward the surface, using coordinates provided by the taller alien earlier. They programmed the machine to create a temporary power surge near the igloo. The process was risky, requiring precise adjustments to prevent overloading the fragile equipment. Every click of a switch, every turn of a dial, carried the weight of potential failure. Finally, with everything in place, Ryan gave the order. Do it. Emma pressed the final sequence of runes, and the chamber erupted in a dazzling display of light. The hum grew louder, vibrating through their bodies as the energy surged outward. For a moment, the entire cavern seemed alive, pulsating with power. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the hum softened, settling into a steady rhythm. It worked, Lauren said, relief evident in her voice. The energy's flowing where it needs to go. Jake wiped sweat from his brow, despite the chill in the air. Let's hope it's enough. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Emma paused, staring at the glowing runes one last time. This isn't just about survival anymore, she said quietly. It's about rebuilding for both of us. Humans and Luminas, together. Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder, nodding. We'll figure it out, one step at a time. The journey back to the surface was quiet, each member of the team lost in thought. When they emerged from the tunnels, the storm had calmed significantly, leaving behind a pristine blanket of snow under a pale gray sky. As they approached the camp, they saw the aliens waiting for them, their forms brighter and steadier than before. The taller alien tilted its head, letting out a series of melodic tones that sounded almost like gratitude. The smaller one followed suit, its voice softer, but equally warm. For the first time since meeting them, the humans felt a genuine sense of connection, a bond forged, not through words, but through shared effort and trust. Inside the igloo, the effects of the energy surge were clear. The aliens' hums were stronger, their movements more fluid. They seemed to radiate vitality, their translucent skin glowing with renewed strength. Emma smiled, watching them interact with each other. They're going to be okay, she said, her voice filled with quiet joy. Ryan nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon, for now. But this is just the beginning. There's so much more to learn from them, and about ourselves. As night fell, the team gathered around the heater, sharing stories and laughter despite the lingering cold. Outside, the wind whispered softly, carrying with it the promise of discovery. Beneath the icy surface of this frozen planet lay secrets that could change humanity forever, and above it, two species had taken the first steps toward understanding one another. For the first time in days, hope burned brightly, not just in the hearts of the humans, but in the luminous glow of the aliens who trusted them to make things right. Document Part 5 of the story. The next morning, the team woke up to find the aliens standing quietly near the entrance of the igloo. Their glowing forms were steadier now, their movements less sluggish. It was clear they had regained some strength, though they still seemed cautious and curious about their Emma was the first to notice them, and quickly approached, holding out her hands in a gesture of peace. Good morning, she said softly, smiling warmly despite knowing they might not understand her words. She mimicked their earlier hums, hoping it would reassure them. To her delight, the taller alien responded with a soft tone of its own, tilting its head slightly, as if studying her. Ryan joined her moments later, carrying a small tablet loaded with images and symbols. Let's see if we can learn more about them today, he suggested, his voice calm but determined. He glanced at Emma, You ready? Emma nodded, taking a deep breath. This was uncharted territory not just for the team, but possibly for humanity itself. They had never attempted communication with an alien species before, and there was no guarantee it would work. But they had to try. Using the tablet, Ryan displayed simple pictures: a sun, a tree, water, and finally, a map of the planet they were on. He pointed to each image, speaking the corresponding word slowly and clearly. The aliens watched intently, their glowing eyes flickering between the screen and the humans. When Ryan pointed to the map, the taller alien let out a series of melodic tones that sounded almost like a question. Emma stepped closer, pointing to the map again and then gesturing around them to indicate the icy landscape. "Where are you from?" she asked, though she doubted they understood English. Instead, she drew a dotted line on the tablet, starting from their current location and extending outward, hoping they would interpret it as a request for information. To everyone's surprise, the taller alien reached out hesitantly and touched the screen. Its finger-like appendage left a faint trail of light as it traced a path across the map away from the icy plains and toward a distant mountain range. Then, it made another mark beneath the surface, indicating something hidden underground. "There. Showing us where they came from," Emma whispered, her heart racing with excitement. "Underground." Ryan exchanged a glance with her, his expression a mix of awe and determination. "We need to investigate. If there's a civilization down there, or even ruins, it could explain everything." Jake, who had been listening nearby, raised an eyebrow skeptically. "You want to go spelunking under a frozen planet, with storms raging above us and zero idea what's waiting below? Sounds like a great plan." "It's risky," Ryan admitted, turning to face the mechanic. "But we didn't come all this way to turn back now. Besides, they trusted us enough to show us this. We owe it to them to follow through." Lauren chimed in, her tone measured but firm. "If we're going to do this, we need to prepare properly. Gear, supplies, backup plans, all of it. And someone needs to stay here with the aliens to make sure they're safe." After a brief discussion, the team decided that Emma, Ryan, Jake, and Lauren would venture into the tunnels, while 2 others remained behind to monitor the camp and care for the aliens. Preparations began immediately, with everyone pitching in to gather equipment and test the portable heaters they would bring along. Before leaving, Emma spent some time with the aliens, trying to convey their intentions. She showed them drawings of humans descending into the ground and returning later, accompanied by musical hums to mimic reassurance. The taller alien responded with a series of tones that seemed approving or, at least, accepting. Whether or not they fully understood, it was clear they trusted the humans to help. The journey to the mountains was grueling. The storm had weakened somewhat, but the winds were still fierce, and the snow made every step treacherous. As they trudged forward, the team relied heavily on the map provided by the aliens, cross-referencing it with their own scans of the terrain. By midday, they reached the base of the jagged peaks, where the entrance to the tunnels awaited. It wasn't hard to spot. A gaping hole in the ice revealed a dark passageway leading downward, partially obscured by fallen rocks and frost. The air coming from within was noticeably colder, carrying a strange metallic scent that none of them could identify. Ryan shone a flashlight into the opening, revealing smooth walls etched with intricate patterns that glowed faintly in the dim light. "This is it," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Their home, or what's left of it." As they descended into the tunnels, the temperature dropped even further. The walls shimmered with veins of crystalline material, casting eerie reflections onto their faces. Every few steps, they encountered remnants of technology, shattered panels, broken machinery, and strange symbols carved into the stone. It was clear that whatever civilization had thrived here had long since fallen into ruin. "This place gives me the creeps," Jake muttered, gripping his tool belt tightly. "Feels like it's watching us." Lauren shot him a sharp look. Focus, Jake. We're here to help, not freak out over shadows. Despite the tension, the team pressed onward, guided by the faint glow of the crystals and the occasional sound of dripping water echoing through the caverns. After nearly an hour of walking, they stumbled upon something extraordinary, a massive chamber filled with dormant machines and towering structures that pulsed faintly with residual energy. In the center of the room stood a large console, its surface covered in glowing runes that shifted and changed as if alive. Emma approached cautiously, running her fingers lightly over the console. "This must be how they powered their city," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "Geothermal energy, maybe, or something else entirely." Ryan examined the surrounding area, noting the thick layer of frost covering everything. Whatever happened here, it shut down fast. "Look at this place, it's frozen solid." Suddenly, the taller aliens' earlier markings made sense. Something catastrophic had forced them to flee underground, leaving behind their once great civilization. Now, stranded on the surface, they were struggling to survive without access to their power source. "We need to reactivate this system," Emma declared, her eyes shining with determination. "Even if it's just temporary, it could give them enough energy to recover, and maybe tell us more about who they are." Jake sighed, shaking his head. "Of course, because fixing ancient alien tech is totally in our job description." Despite the challenges ahead, the team got to work, piecing together fragments of knowledge from the machinery and relying on instinct to guide them. Slowly but surely, the chamber began to hum with life, its dormant systems awakening one by one. Lights flickered on, revealing breathtaking designs etched into the walls, and the air warmed slightly, carrying a faint vibration that resonated deep within their chests. For the first time since arriving on the planet, the humans felt a glimmer of hope, not just for themselves, but for the fragile bond they had forged with the mysterious beings above. Whatever secrets lay buried beneath the ice, they were determined to uncover them together. And as the console roared to life, filling the chamber with a symphony of light and sound, Emma couldn't help but smile. They had taken the first step toward bridging two worlds, one human, one alien, and nothing would ever be the same again. Document. Part 4 of the story the next morning brought a rare moment of calm. The storm had eased slightly, allowing the team to step outside without feeling like they were being swallowed by the wind. The air was still bitterly cold, but the silence felt almost peaceful after days of relentless howling. Inside the igloo, the two aliens rested quietly, their glowing forms dimmer than before, but steady. It was clear that the warmth and soup had helped them recover, though they remained weak. Emma sat cross-legged near the entrance of the igloo, watching the aliens closely. She had spent most of the night thinking about them, wondering who or what they really were. Their translucent skin and faint hums hinted at something extraordinary. Yet there was also a fragility to them that reminded her of injured animals, seeking shelter. They weren't hostile, at least not yet, but they weren't fully trusting either. "They're smart," Emma murmured to herself as she scribbled notes on a small tablet. "Smarter than we thought." Ryan joined her a few minutes later, carrying a thermos of hot tea. He handed it to her with a small smile. "You've been staring at them for hours," he said. "Any breakthroughs?" Emma shook her head. "Not really, but I think we're missing something obvious. Look at them, they're not eating or drinking much. Maybe they don't need food the way we do." Ryan frowned, glancing at the aliens. "So what are they doing? Just surviving on air?" "I don't know," Emma admitted, "but I think it's connected to those hums they make. Have you noticed how they seem to glow brighter when they hum together? It's like they're sharing energy." Ryan crouched beside her, his expression thoughtful. "If that's true, then maybe this planet isn't their natural environment. What if they're refugees, stranded here like us?" Emma nodded slowly. "It makes sense. This place is too harsh even for them. Something must have driven them forced them to leave wherever they came from. Before Ryan could respond, Lauren approached, holding a medical scanner. I ran some tests while they were sleeping, she said quietly. Their bodies aren't producing heat internally, which explains why they were freezing out there, but their cells are generating some kind of low-level electrical charge. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. Jake, who had been tinkering with equipment nearby, looked up sharply. Electrical charge? You mean they're basically walking? Batteries, Lauren shrugged. Sort of, but it's more complex than that. The charge seems to fluctuate depending on their mood or maybe their health. When they hum, the charge increases. Emma's eyes lit up. That's it, she exclaimed. They use sound to recharge themselves. That's why they hum, and that's probably why they were so weak when we found them. Without enough energy, they can't sustain themselves. Ryan stood up, his mind racing. If that's true, then we need to figure out how to help them generate more energy. Do they feed off sunlight, heat, or is it something else entirely? Emma hesitated. Maybe all three, or maybe none of those. We'll have to experiment. Over the next few hours, the team worked tirelessly to create a controlled environment inside the igloo. They set up solar panels to capture any weak rays breaking through the clouds, added heated stones for warmth, and even played soft music through a portable speaker to see if it would trigger a response. At first, the aliens seemed confused, tilting their heads and exchanging quiet hums. But as the experiments continued, they began to react more positively. One particularly striking moment came when Emma played a simple melody on a handheld keyboard. The taller alien tilted its head back and let out a long, melodic tone that resonated through the igloo. Its entire body pulsed with light, casting colorful patterns across the walls. The smaller alien followed suit, humming in harmony. For a brief moment, the igloo felt alive with energy, as if the very air vibrated with life. Jake watched in awe. Okay, that's officially weird and kind of cool. Lauren smiled faintly. Looks like we're onto something. Music might be there. Language or, at least part of it. As the day wore on, the team grew more confident in their interactions with the aliens. They started using gestures and sounds to communicate, mimicking their hums and tones. Slowly but surely, the aliens began to mimic the humans in return, copying their movements and expressions. It was clumsy and imperfect, but it was progress. By evening, the atmosphere in the camp had shifted. The initial fear and uncertainty had given way to curiosity and camaraderie. Even Jake, who had been the most skeptical at first, found himself warming up to the idea of working alongside these strange beings. They're not so bad, he admitted as he helped carry fresh supplies into the igloo. Kind of reminds me of taking care of my little brother when he was sick, except they're aliens. Emma laughed softly. Maybe that's exactly what they need, someone to take care of them. Later that night, as the team gathered around the heater in the main tent, Ryan raised an important question. We've made some headway, but we still don't know much about them. Where did they come from? Why are they here? And what happens if we can't find a permanent solution? Emma leaned forward, her expression serious. We should ask them. Not literally, of course, but we can try showing them images or symbols. If they understand music, maybe they'll understand pictures too. Ryan nodded. Let's give it a shot tomorrow. In the meantime, we keep helping them recover. Whatever their story is, it's clear they trust us now, or at least enough to let us help. The conversation ended there, but the weight of the mission settled heavily on everyone's shoulders. They were no longer just explorers. They were caretakers, diplomats, and scientists, all rolled into one. And as they drifted off to sleep, each member of the team couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the brink of something monumental. Outside, the storm picked up again, its winds howling like a chorus of ghosts. But inside the igloo, the aliens lay side by side, their faint hums blending together in a soothing melody. For the first time since landing on this frozen world, the humans felt a flicker of hope, a fragile but undeniable connection that transcended species and language. Little did they know, the answers they sought were closer than they realized. Hidden beneath the ice and snow lay secrets that would change everything, not just for the aliens, but for humanity as well. Document. Part 3 of the story. The storm showed no signs of letting up. It had been 2 days since Emma's encounter with the mysterious figures, and the team was growing restless. The constant howling of the wind made it hard to focus, and the biting cold seemed to seep into their bones no matter how many layers they wore. Despite the harsh conditions, Ryan Carter knew they couldn't stay cooped up in the camp forever. Repairs needed to be done, supplies checked, and the mission had to move forward. "Jake, you're with me," Ryan said, pulling on his heavy coat. "We need to check the rover. If we don't fix it soon, we're stuck here." Jake groaned but nodded, grabbing a toolkit and following Ryan out into the storm. The wind hit them like a wall as they stepped outside, forcing them to lean forward just to stay upright. Snow swirled around their boots, making every step feel like a battle. They trudged toward the damaged rover, its metallic frame half buried. And snow dot. As they worked, the storm grew worse. The sky darkened even further, and the temperature dropped sharply. Ryan shouted over the wind, guiding Jake through the repairs. They were so focused on the task that neither of them noticed the faint glow appearing in the distance until it was almost too late. "Wait," Jake yelled, pointing toward a rocky overhang not far from where they stood. "Do you see that?" Ryan squinted through the blizzard. At first, he thought it was just another trick of the light. But then he saw it clearly, 2 figures huddled together under the overhang. Their bodies shimmered faintly, casting an eerie glow against the snow. One of them was curled up tightly, while the other leaned protectively over it. Both looked weak, shivering violently despite their strange, translucent skin. "What are they doing out here?" Jake muttered, his voice filled with unease. "They'll freeze to death." Ryan hesitated for a moment, torn between caution and compassion. These beings weren't human, but they were clearly suffering. He glanced at Jake, who shrugged uncertainly, then stepped forward, raising a hand to signal peace. "It's okay," Ryan called out, his voice calm despite the storm. "We're not going to hurt you." The taller figure lifted its head slightly, its glowing eyes locking onto Ryan's. For a moment, neither side moved. Then, slowly, the creature shifted, revealing the smaller one beneath it. Its movements were sluggish, as if every motion required immense effort. Ryan unzipped his coat and held it out toward the creatures. "Take this," he said firmly, though he wasn't sure they understood him. "You need warmth." The taller figure hesitated, its gaze flickering between Ryan and the coat. Finally, it reached out with a slender, claw-like hand and accepted the offering. It draped the coat awkwardly over the smaller figure, who let out a soft melodic hum sound that sent chills down Ryan's spine. "They're alive," Jake whispered, his skepticism giving way to awe. "And they're intelligent." Ryan nodded, watching as the creatures huddled closer together under the makeshift cover. "We can't leave them here," he said decisively. "Let's get them back to the camp." Jake opened his mouth to protest, but closed it again. He could see the determination in Ryan's eyes, and knew there was no point arguing. Together, they approached the figures cautiously, speaking softly to reassure them. The taller one allowed Ryan to guide it to its feet, though it wobbled unsteadily. The smaller one clung to it, its body trembling uncontrollably. The journey back to the camp was slow and difficult. The storm continued to rage, and the weight of the 2 aliens made the trek even harder. But Ryan refused to give up. Every time he felt like turning back, he reminded himself of the look in their glowing eyes, a mixture of fear and gratitude that mirrored something deeply human. When they finally reached the camp, the rest of the team stared in shock. Emma rushed forward, her face pale with concern. "What happened?" she asked, her eyes darting between the aliens and the men. "We found them out there," Ryan explained quickly. "They were freezing. We couldn't just leave them." Lauren stepped forward, her medical instincts kicking in. "Bring them inside," she instructed. "We'll figure out what to do once we get them warmed up." The team worked quickly, clearing space near the heater and wrapping the aliens in blankets. Lauren examined them carefully, noting their shallow breathing and low body temperature. "They're hypothermic," she said grimly. "But I don't know enough about their biology to treat them properly." Emma knelt beside the creatures, studying them intently. She noticed that their skin wasn't just translucent, it seemed to pulse faintly with light, as if energy coursed through their bodies. "Maybe they don't generate heat like we do," she suggested. "Could they survive without it somehow?" Ryan shook his head. "Whatever they are, they're not built for this kind of weather. Look at them, they're barely holding on." The aliens watched silently as the humans bustled around them. Occasionally, they would exchange soft hums or musical tones, their voices blending harmoniously. It was clear they were communicating, though the meaning was lost on the team. Jake leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "So, what now?" he asked. "We've got 2 alien hitchhikers who might die if we don't figure out how to help them." Emma frowned, deep in thought. "We need to build them shelter, something that can hold heat better than this tent. And maybe food, or whatever they eat." Ryan nodded. "Start gathering materials. We'll build an igloo. It's simple, effective, and quick. Lauren, keep an eye on them. If anything changes, let us know." The team sprang into action, braving the storm once more to collect blocks of compacted snow. Working together, they constructed a sturdy igloo just outside the main tent. Inside, they placed heated stones and lit a small portable stove to raise the temperature. When everything was ready, they gently guided the aliens into their new shelter, ensuring they were comfortable. To everyone's surprise, the aliens seemed intrigued by the igloo. They explored the space cautiously, running their hands or what passed for hands over the smooth walls. The taller one hummed softly, a sound that seemed to carry a note of approval. Back in the tent, Emma busied herself preparing hot soup. She didn't know if the aliens could eat it, but it was worth a try. Using ingredients from their rations, she cooked a simple broth and poured it into bowls. Carrying them carefully to the igloo, she offered one to the taller alien. "Here," she said gently, miming drinking to demonstrate. "It's warm. Maybe it will help." The alien tilted its head, studying the bowl curiously. After a moment, it dipped a finger-like appendage into the liquid and touched it to its glowing skin. A soft hum escaped its lips, followed by a series of melodic tones. It handed the bowl to the smaller alien, who sniffed it cautiously before taking a tentative sip. "They like it," Emma whispered, her heart swelling with hope. "Or at least, they're willing to try it." As the aliens sipped the soup, the team watched in silence. The storm still raged outside, but inside the igloo, there was a sense of connection, a fragile bond forming between 2 vastly different species. For the first time since landing on this frozen planet, the humans felt like they were exactly where they were meant to be. Little did they know, this was only the beginning of a much larger story. Document Part 2 of the story. The storm outside showed no signs of slowing down. The wind howled like a living thing, battering the sides of the small base camp with relentless force. Inside the temporary shelter, the team huddled around a glowing heater, their breath visible in the cold air. They had been on the icy planet for less than a day, but already the weight of the mission and the isolation was starting to press down on them. Emma Lewis sat at a small table, poring over maps and data logs. Her gloved hands moved carefully over the papers, trying to make sense of the strange energy readings that had brought them here. Across from her, Jake Miller tinkered with a broken piece of equipment, muttering under his breath as he worked. Lauren Bennett, the medic, leaned against the wall, sipping hot tea while keeping an eye on everyone's mood. And then there was Ryan Carter, pacing back and forth, his boots making soft crunching sounds against the frozen ground beneath the tent floor. "We need to get out there," Ryan said suddenly, breaking the silence. His voice carried a mix of determination and frustration. "Sitting here isn't going to help us figure out what's going on." Emma looked up from her work, her brow furrowed. "It's not safe yet," she replied. "The storm is too strong. We'll get lost. Worse if we try to explore now." Jake glanced up briefly from his repairs. "She's right, Captain. Besides, half our gear is still buried under snow from when we landed. We're not exactly ready for a field trip." Ryan stopped pacing inside, running a hand through his short hair. He knew they were right, but waiting felt unbearable. Every second they spent doing nothing was another second wasted. Still, he nodded reluctantly and turned toward the entrance of the tent. Outside, the storm raged on, its fury almost deafening. Later that evening, Emma decided to take a short walk around the perimeter of the camp. She needed fresh air, as fresh as it could be in this frozen wasteland, and some time alone to think. Wrapping herself tightly in her coat, she stepped out into the biting cold. The wind stung her cheeks, and she pulled her hood closer, shielding her face from the icy blasts. As she walked, something caught her eyes, series of marks in the snow. At first, she thought it might have been made by one of the others, perhaps someone checking the equipment earlier. But as she knelt down to examine the tracks more closely, she realized they weren't human. The prints were too large, too irregular, and oddly shaped, almost like clawed feet dragging along the surface. Her heart began to race. Was it possible? Could there really be life on this desolate planet? She followed the trail cautiously, her boots sinking slightly into the deep snow. The tracks led away from the camp and disappeared into the swirling mist ahead. Just as she was about to turn back, she saw movement, a flicker of shadow, darting between two jagged rocks in the distance. "Hello?" she called out, her voice trembling despite her best effort to sound calm. There was no response, only the sound of the wind whipping around her. She squinted, trying to see through the haze. But whatever it was had vanished. When Emma returned to the camp, she told the others what she'd seen. Ryan listened intently, his expression serious. Jake raised an eyebrow skeptically, while Lauren seemed more curious than alarmed. "You sure you didn't imagine it?" Jake asked, leaning forward. "This place messes with your head after a while." "I know what I saw," Emma insisted, her tone firm. "And those tracks weren't ours. Something or someone is out there." Ryan stood up, his mind racing. If Emma was telling the truth, and he had no reason to doubt her, it changed everything. This wasn't just a scientific expedition anymore. It was a first contact scenario. The thought both excited and terrified him. "All right," he said. "Finally. We'll keep an eye out tonight. Double shifts if we have to. No one goes anywhere alone until we know more." The hours passed slowly, the storm showing no sign of letting up. By midnight, most of the team had retreated to their sleeping bags, though none of them truly slept. Emma volunteered to take the first watch, sitting near the entrance of the tent with a flashlight in hand. She scanned the horizon every few minutes, her eyes straining to see past the endless swirls of snow. Just as her shift was ending, she spotted something again. This time, it was unmistakable. Two figures stood at the edge of the camp, partially hidden by the storm. They were tall and slender, their forms shimmering faintly in the dim light. Their skin, if it could even be called that, was translucent, giving them an otherworldly appearance. One of them tilted its head slightly, as if studying her. Emma froze, unsure of what to do. Should she call out, wake the others? Before she could decide, the figures turned and disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind only silence. When morning came, the team gathered to discuss what Emma had seen. Some were skeptical, while others believed her completely. But one thing was certain: they couldn't ignore the possibility that they weren't alone on this planet. Whatever these creatures were, they had watched the humans and now the humans would have to figure out why. For the rest of the day, the team stayed close to the camp, keeping weapons and tools within reach. The storm continued to rage, masking any further attempts by the mysterious figures to approach. Yet even as they waited, a new question lingered in everyone's minds. Were these beings friends, foes, or something entirely different? Little did they know, the answer would come sooner and in a way than any of them expected. The spaceship descended through thick clouds, its engines roaring against the biting winds that tore across the frozen landscape. The icy planet below was a world of endless white, where snow stretched as far as the eye could see and jagged mountains pierced the sky like broken teeth. It was a place untouched by warmth, uninviting and harsh. Yet here they were, a small team of humans, landing in the middle of what felt like the coldest corner of the universe. Captain Ryan Carter gripped the controls tightly, his knuckles pale against the dim glow of the cockpit lights. Beside him sat Emma Lewis, her face illuminated by the flickering screens, displaying data about the planet's atmosphere. She wasn't a pilot, but she had insisted on sitting up front during the descent. Her sharp eyes scanned every detail, looking for anything unusual. This mission mattered too much to leave anything to chance. "Touchdown in 30 seconds, Ryan said, his voice calm but firm. He glanced at Emma briefly before returning his focus to the controls. "Let's hope this ice holds us." Emma nodded, though she didn't respond. She was too busy thinking about the energy readings that had brought them here. Back on Earth, scientists had detected strange signals emanating from this remote planet, signals unlike anything ever recorded. Some believed it was natural, some thought it might be alien technology, and others dismissed it entirely as interference. Whatever it was, humanity needed answers. And so, here they were. The ship shuddered violently as it broke through the final